What's good? It's Woog. Yeah. Verzuz announced that their next matchup is between the Isley Brothers and Earth, Wind & Fire. Awesome stuff, right? I mean, they've also announced that SWV and Escape are going to have theirs, and that Method Man and Redman are going to have theirs on 420. So we're going to get into all that in subsequent videos. But right now, let's talk Isley Brothers versus Earth, Wind & Fire, damn it. But more specifically, because we're going to get into the actual comparisons a little down the road. But I just want to say that the interesting thing about this matchup is that while on its surface, it sounds like it makes sense. And it sounds like these two groups or bands are peers, right? Contemporaries. Whoa. People have been sleeping on the Isleys. Isley Brothers, in my opinion, are probably the most, if not at least among the most, underrated, under-discussed artists when it comes to recognizing their discography, their catalog, right? Like Stevie Wonder, he's a legend. He gets his props. I think Stevie gets his props. Marvin Gaye gets his props. You know, certain classic soul singers, I believe, are honored accordingly. And I actually think that Earth, Wind & Fire gets more props overall than the Isley Brothers. I don't know if it's Ronald Isley's teeth, or maybe that he was singing kind of like young man songs while he was an old man. Maybe that put some, look, I don't know why their catalog isn't honored, but let's break this down. First of all, the Isley Brothers and Earth, Wind & Fire are partial contemporaries, but what you have to realize is that Earth, Wind & Fire's first recordings were in 1971, right? So they're a 70s band that went into the 80s and kept on recording throughout the 90s and so forth. But the 70s were their ultimate pinnacle. So 71 onward, right? The Isley Brothers, when do you think the Isley started? Maybe like 66, like 65 Temptations and Smokey Robinson and the Miracles era? No. The Isley Brothers, their first hit was in 59, and it was Shout. Y'all know that. You know you make me wanna shout, get my... Come on. And you want to talk about classics. Shout, that song is over 60 years old. Their first proper recording was 57. So 59, they've got a hit in Shout, which goes on to become a classic. Again, Earth, Wind & Fire started in 71. I love Earth, Wind & Fire, but let's not act like this is totally apples for apples. Can you name me another group band that actually went from 50s, late 50s strong through the 60s, 70s, 80s into the 90s? How many decades? Bruce Springsteen has covered several decades. Frank Sinatra is another. For all of Stevie Wonder's greatness, I mean, he started with like and Master Blaster and Fingertips and like his early hits. Those were still 60s. And then his 70s, and this was like mid to late 60s. Like he was like, a little bit after Smokey Robinson and the Temptations. Then young Stevie Wonder is what they called him because he was a kid. He came along, and then the 70s were his heyday, and then he recorded into the 80s. He had a few 80s hits, I think Hotter Than July, Part-Time Lover, I Just Called to Say I Love You. These were 80s, but the bulk of Stevie's greatness were through the 70s, right? Again, Isley Brothers hit Shout. That was 59. And then they had Twist and Shout, 62. So you know the Beatles, one of the Beatles' first classics, their early classic, Twist and Shout, the Isleys recorded their version of that song 2 years before that, 62. And you can listen to those back to back and tell me which one you prefer. I mean, the Beatles obviously is more of a renowned version of it. You know, that was a song used in like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and it's just generally the one that you hear more often if you're to hear that song. If somebody sings it at a karaoke bar, it's gonna be the Beatles version, right? But the Isleys had a Twist and Shout in 62. Who's That Lady? Their next recognizable hit, 64. So we're going back. Earth, Wind & Fire, it's gonna be another 7 years from this point before Earth, Wind & Fire is even recording, let alone making a hit, right? So then they actually go to Motown. That's what a lot of people don't even know about the Isleys, is they had a 3 to 4 year Motown era. And this was from 66 to 69. And they actually started off hot. because they came in and their first major track with Motown was This Old Heart of Mine. I love you. You know what I'm talking about. That song is a banger if you hear that Motown classic. That was just Isley's short 3-year period with Motown. This Old Heart of Mine is Weak for You. So this is like 66. And then they kind of cooled off and didn't really have much success over the next couple years with Motown. And Motown was called Tamla Records. People were saying Tamla as much as they were saying Motown. The Isleys did their thing with Berry Gordy and Company. And then they go to T-Neck. And this is where they truly took off. If those hits weren't enough, those early ones, they're on T-Neck. And they come out the gate with It's Your Thing. It's your thing. Do what you want to do. Think about it. How many hits are we in this now? This is the song that they came out the gate with. Remember, they came out the gate with This Old Heart of Mine before, and before that they had Shout, Twist and Shout, Who's That Lady? But more importantly, they had a major band switch up. So like the two brothers, or the few brothers that were singing with Ron Isley, they were only there for the first couple albums, few albums. But by the time they hit the 70s, they have a major band switch up. Before that, they're more so like a Motown style, shooby-doo-wop. The conks and the hairstyles and the process, the different hairstyles they had back in the day. But now we hit the 70s and funk is on the map. So they have a band lineup, and this is how many brothers Ron Isley's got, right? Ernie Isley ends up being their guitar player. And that is the sound that you truly identify along with Ron Isley's voice and their cool bass licks, bass guitar licks and stuff. But it's that guitar that separates them from so many other groups, bands, whether you're talking rock and roll, soul, whatever. The fact that you've got the voice in Ronald Isley, who, is there any more of a butter voice in the game, historically speaking, than Ron Isley? Does it get any smoother than that? Well, couple that with the guitar of Ernie Isley. By the way, that's that guitar that you hear decades later in 95 with R. Kelly, or was it 95, 96? R. Kelly's Down Low, featuring Ronald Isley, Mr. Biggs, right? Like that's how far their career ended up stretching. But it's still that signature Ernie Isley guitar that makes that Down Low song what it is. Man, so when they're on this other label after Motown, they just start coming with album after album. Check this out, man. They got like 3+3. They've got The Heat Is On. They've got Go For Your Guns. And before that, I think Harvest for the World. These albums are the ones that contain For the Love of You, which in my opinion is one of their best songs of all time. And there are not too many sexier songs than For the Love of You. Master Ace famously, Rap famously used it in 95 for the INC ride. That was on his Master Ace Incorporated album. But yeah, just brilliant. All you gotta do is let that loop play, because it's one of the sexier loops you'll ever hear, instrumentally speaking, let alone the vocals. And so, you come on, For the Love of You. So that's on one of those albums. Footsteps in the Dark. That's the one that Ice Cube sampled for Today Was a Good Day. Come on, man. They came with Voyage to Atlantis, which is one of the most dramatic guitar intros to a song that I could think of. Listen to Voyage to Atlantis. It still hits me like deep in the soul. After years of being exposed to this song, it still has that impact. So that's Voyage to Atlantis. That's in the same 71 to 77 is what we're talking. Like this is their next chunk. Let Me Down Easy. I can't remember which rapper sampled that kind of melancholy instrumental. It might have been Tracy Lee. Remember, it's party time, wherever my crew go, we get down, we get down. 90s hip hop heads will remember that. But he sampled Let Me Down Easy. That's another banger from the Isleys. They had a beautiful cover of Bob Dylan's Lay Lady Lay. Remarkable. When my dad started talking to me about the Isleys and really got into the Isleys, because me and my dad, we always talk music, we talk boxing a lot, but we talk music. He was putting me up on 2 songs by the Isleys. He said, my 2 favorite, Lay Lady Lay, that Bob Dylan cover, and then Summer Breeze. They have an iconic version of Summer Breeze. Listen to that one. My goodness. So think about this list of tracks that I'm just laying out right here. And this was just the 70s. Remember, I already took you through the 60s and then their late 50s, right? But then they had other more, harder and funkier songs like Work to Do, The Pride, Love the One You're With. These were more, slightly funkier songs. Even though those 70s classics that I just mentioned are funky and sexy. They've got Coolin' Me Out. That's the one that Warren G later used for Smoking Me Out. And he featured Ron Isley on that. But Coolin' Me Out, Groove With You. But then they have Make Me Say It Again, Girl. And that was sampled by Bone Thugs and Harmony for the song The Crossroads. At the time, it was the Crossroads remix because they had an original Crossroad on that East 1999 album when it was first released. They re-released it like a year later with the Crossroads DJ Unique remix, which is the one that went on to become the hip-hop classic. But the Crossroads features a sample of Make Me Say It Again, Girl. So when you go back and listen to Make Me Say It Again, Girl, think Bone Thugs and Harmony's The Crossroads. But yeah, man, they've got way more through the 70s, and I didn't even get into the 80s with Between the Sheets. That's the one that Biggie's producer, I forgot who produced the Big Papa beat. But yeah, the producer of Big Papa used Between the Sheets, instrumental. And then they got Choosy Lover, also from the 80s. Choosy Love. That's what Bone Thugs and Harmony sampled that one too. But for the Smokers' iconic anthem, Buddha Lovers, samples the Isley Brothers' Choosy Lover. But yeah, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna do another video that's actually breaking down these comparisons and these, matchups between the Isley Brothers, who, again, I think I've proven my point here. The Isleys are super slept on because of how many decades they span. We're talking 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And then they had Contagious in the beginning of the 2000s. So they were still rocking. Come on, man. The Isley Brothers do not get enough love because they should be on among the mountaintop of the artists that we come to love. They should be up there with Prince, Marvin Gaye, Al Green. Look, to me, in terms of their catalog and the breadth and depth of their catalog, they've got more impressive catalogs than a lot of people's favorite soul classic singers or rock bands, classic rock bands, classic rock singers. Their catalog is, we could get into some comparisons, but I just wanted to outline how the Isleys are so slept on. We could get into the reasons why, but I can't wait for this Verzuz, and I just don't think that there is enough time on the clock to get through all of the hits that the Isley Brothers have had throughout the decades, let alone years. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, let me know which Verzuz battle you're looking forward to the most and which past Verzuz battle has been your favorite. They've really, Swiss Beats and Timbaland, and then now Triller bought it. They really grew something special. I know Dr. Dre just declined, it came out that several months ago, he declined doing the Verzuz battle because he saw, some of the technical difficulties involved in the Babyface versus Teddy Riley Verzuz battle. But yeah, let me know what you think about the Isley Brothers specifically. Are you really, really up on the Isleys? Are you kind of up on the Isleys? Do you have any favorite go-to Isley classics? Because I didn't even list all the classics. For all the ones that I listed, there are more. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to get into it because there's more to come. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you love soul music like I do. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in. By the way, if you're still sticking around and still watching the video at this point, first of all, thank you. But secondly, I just want to say that, I said soul music, but nah, the Isleys are actually pretty difficult to classify. And I think that they're almost lumped in because people associate one particular sound with them, not knowing that they've had this decade of success and this onslaught of hit after hit after hit, right? But you could call them a soul group when they were, in their earlier renditions. But you've got to understand the fusion and the hybrids when we were getting into the funk era and then the jazz fusion era and all these different eras that they, kind of presided over or were at least a part of. And you have to acknowledge the Isley Brothers as a funk band, a soul band, a rock band. There were all kinds of things. And if you talk about some of the early classics, even a pop-ish band, if you want to get into the twist and shouts. But yeah, let me know what you think. Again, thank you for tuning in.